And in Detroit, for example, the African American Festival ain't popping. You know what's popping? Afro Nation.
Hey, roll the footage. Hey, what's going on? I'm Ochanda with the reaction video series. Usually we're reacting to dating shows, but on this one, we're going to get a little bit serious. On this episode, I'm reacting to a video from Anton Daniels, one hell of a content creator. He is somebody that also does reaction videos and a lot of political analysis in recent years, especially with this year being an election year in the United States. He's done a lot of political analysis. So big shout out to him, Anton Daniels. I salute you. On this reaction video, we're reacting to a video that he has about how African or Caribbean immigrants don't really take African American culture serious, or they just don't even like it at all. So without further ado, let's get into it.
You know what I'm starting to see? I'm going to be absolutely honest with you guys. I'm starting to see people, I'm starting to see a switch amongst the American people. Dang, do I want to have this conversation right now? I'm not sure that y'all prepared to have this conversation.
And right away, you could tell that this is a handsome man because they say bald men do it best, right? Bald men do it best, and he rocks the bald very well. And who knows? Maybe I might grow out my beard just like our guy Anton Daniels.
I don't know if y'all prepared to have this conversation. I'm starting to see a switch in what we define as American people. I might have to tackle this later. When I go on these social media platforms and I look at some of these videos that y'all send me, I'll give you an example because I need to have a more extensive conversation about.
Speaking of, if there's anything that you guys want us to go ahead and react to, especially if it deals with the African diaspora or relates in any way, go ahead and send it to us, man. Our information is in the description box below. Send it our way.
I see Haitians, for example, and I think that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden did their job, or at least they did what they set out to do. Because I'm starting to see, for example, Haitians that say, I'm over in this country and I can't believe that they are labeling us this way and they won't let us in. I'm gathering all of my Haitian friends that have the ability to vote to go and vote against Donald Trump and Harris and JD Vance because they're demonizing us and they're making us evil. I'm starting to see people that were not born in America or their parents weren't born in America. And so their parents finessed the system, had their children here. Their parents may not even be legal, but they are because they were born here in the United States of America. And now they're flipping the script and saying that they're demonizing Republicans for standing up for American values because they've already brought their culture over here and they want to see more of their people coming into the country.
As somebody that is a immigrant coming from an immigrant family myself, I know that one, bringing your culture, that's what you're gonna do. Let's look at it from a micro standpoint, because that's, you were talking about nationalities, that's a macro. Let's go ahead and look at it from a micro level. A micro level is, if you get invited to somebody's house, usually your behaviors, you're going to bring those behaviors to somebody else's house. So if you're from a different country, more than likely you're going to bring your culture to that new country. Yeah, yeah. You're gonna bring your music, ba-da-da-ba-bum-bum. You're gonna bring your food. You're gonna bring your clothes. You're gonna definitely bring your language if you don't speak English, especially American English. American English, just to let you guys know, American English is an English that nobody else speaks. What do I mean by that? So British English is often spoken elsewhere where Britain had their former colonies, right? Kenya, Bermuda, Jamaica, right? Uganda, right? Like the English that's spoke in those countries is not American English. For instance, when I went back to Kenya, I had was with my aunt, and she had a flat tire, and then I was just like, "Oh, go ahead and pop the trunk." She was like, "Pop the what?" And I said, "Pop the trunk." And she had no idea what I meant. And then I went back to the trunk. So British English, they call the trunk a boot for my American viewers. A boot. Now imagine in America what you call a boot. Here's another one. A semi truck in America, a semi, they call it semi. You drive semis. British English, they call it lorry. And in Kenya, they also call it a lorry. You understand? So it's not even the same. Anyways, I say all that to say, like, yeah, people bring themselves because their culture is themselves. People bring themselves. But I mean, again, if you invite somebody that you've never met before to your house, they're going to bring their behaviors and their personality because that's who they are.
That's not a conversation that people want to have. That's not a conversation that people want to have. There's so many different cultures that are here. And so what they're doing is they're tying themselves to the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party is allowing for them to sponsor and get their people over here, which then influences what's happening in the American economy. And they are not going back over to Haiti. They're not going back over to Cuba. They're not going back to Nicaragua. And they're not going back over to Venezuela. And they stay here. They have kids. They build families. And then they say, well, I want to get the rest of my family over here, or I want to be able to send more money over there, or I should be able to work, or I deserve this, or I've been over this country for a certain amount of time. We're going to mobilize against this administration because they are racist and they're bigoted. And let me also say this to all of my fellow black people: they don't like you. They think that you are weak. Let me rephrase that. They know you weak.
Before, hey, that's really heavy. Before we, even before I allow him to continue, uh, and us watch, it didn't occur to me until after high school that I grew up in the Midwest, the upper Midwest, and it didn't occur to me that there was a narrative hanging over my head. What was that narrative, Ochanda? The narrative that African immigrants, Caribbean immigrants come to the United States and they don't like the black people that are already here. The African Americans, the black Americans. I never knew that because growing up, you ask any African immigrant like what their experience was growing up in places that was predominantly black American, or if they went to school with other African Americans. Ask them, they will say like, bro, we wasn't accepted, and that's how I felt sometimes, not all the time, not all the time. In fact, my stepfather that raised me in America from South Sudan, he married an African American woman. So I had African American brothers and sisters, and so most of the time I actually felt welcome. But there were times where I knew that I was being singled out, not in my family, not never in my family, but just out and about playing basketball, or just being outside of the house, that I felt like, hey, this person doesn't. They could tell that my parents are not from the United States, and they feel a type of way, so they're coming at me or they're treating me different. So it didn't occur to me until after high school that like I had a conversation, one too many conversations with African Americans, and one of them was like, "Yeah, you guys don't even like us." And I was like, "Wait, what? We don't like you? Are you sure? We actually love you, man. We listen to you guys' music. We try as much as we can. At least us first generation kids. Maybe our parents might feel a type of way, and I'm sure he'll go into that. But as far as like us, for us first generation, bro, we have nothing but great things to say about African Americans. One, like, at least for the guys, what Michael Jordan, just growing up, like we all wanted to be like Michael Jordan if we played basketball. And then your guys is inventors. The person that invented the super soaker, African American guy. The lady that created the model that is used now for the security system, I think Brinks uses it. It's a black woman from Brooklyn, New York. The traffic light I heard was invented by a black person. I'm sure there's a whole, if you guys want, I'll link this PBS special about all the African American inventors. And you can go ahead and watch that. But I think it's right here. Yeah, it's over here. But regardless, like man, at least me, I always looked up, to because I'm not in Africa, so I looked up to people who look like me, and that was African Americans, Black Americans, and yeah, no, I didn't feel that type of way. So that it was surprising for me.
They know all you want to do is party and have a good time and sit and chill. And guess what? They right. They know that you're easily manipulated. Most of the time, they smarter than you. They more educated than you. They got a harder work.
This is funny on so many levels because Antoine, if you get a chance to watch this, you'll come to find out that like Africans love to party too. I don't have the book off of the top of my head, but in one of okay, so back in ancient times of Africa, just think back, like maybe even like around the time that the pharaohs were in control of Kemet, Egypt, ancient Egypt. There were people that would come into interior Africa, even below Egypt, like Sudan, modern day Uganda, Mali, modern day Chad, and they one of the observations that was common is that the people of this land, they were talking about Africa, and they said that what's a common theme and a pattern among these people that we see, not only are they darker of a darker skin color, not only are they tall, they slender, but they said these people love to enjoy themselves and they love to dance when they hear music. There's Greek and I believe Roman like ex people that went on expeditions, and it's in their diary. If I have the book, or if somebody knows these books, there's personal journals of these from guys from ancient times, and they're like, hey, the people of Africa, they just love to party. I mean, just love to enjoy themselves. So it's just more just like that's just who we are as black people. We can like try to like, oh, that's not everybody. I mean, we've seen babies. All of us have been around, any of our siblings' kids, any of our cousins that have babies, and you'll even see babies tapping their feet, moving their head like duck baliba, duck baliba, suck baliba, suck baliba, oporokoto, opom pom, oporokoto.
Ethic than you. The only thing that y'all have in common is the hue of your skin, but they don't even respect you. They don't respect your culture. They don't respect the fact that you haven't taken advantage of the opportunities that you've had inside of this country in order to level up. And they don't align with you. They don't rock with you. They don't rock with Umar Johnson. They don't align with y'all. They come over here and they look at you as inferior. And they are right. And it ain't because of your skin color or the fact that you're American. It's the fact that you embrace a culture that's completely.
Let's. I know we pausing a lot during this reaction. I want to say that Antoine, and then the other Black Americans, African Americans that are watching, there's classism in Africa. So just like there's classism in the United States, there's classism in Africa. Remember, you're talking to people in Africa and the Caribbean that come from a majority black countries. So what does that mean? That means that like every day that you're waking up, that you're going, everybody looks like you. You go to the grocery store, everybody in that grocery store that's working and that's being a consumer looks like you. Anytime that you, let's say you have to go register your vehicle, everybody in that office or in that building looks like you. You go to the doctor's office, everybody from the receptionist to the actual practicing doctor, they look like you. You go and get your car fixed at the mechanic shop, everybody looks like you. So when you live in a black majority country in Africa and the Caribbean, then how people separate themselves is by class. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear this, but like there's, man, many a times where you ask anybody that grew up in Africa or grew up in the Caribbean and just ask them like, hey, like when you came across a wealthy family, how did they act towards you if you didn't grow up wealthy? And just hear their response. Because I grew up in the Midwest and there were some African families that I don't know if they were well off, but they presented themselves better off than my family. And the way that they would talk, even the kids, the way that the kids would talk to us, there's just classism. So I want more African Americans to understand that. So there's classism, number one. And then number two, most of the time people, I mean, just to come from Africa and the Caribbean, you have to take a, if it's not a flight, like it's a whole process. Like you can't just hop a border. Okay. And I know some people will be like, are you sure? What about some Caribbeans? Shut up. Let's stick with Africa, right? People coming, the African immigrants that are coming to the United States, they got to go through a whole process. So by the time that they're going through that entire vetting process, and again, the United States is vetting them. Nobody else is vetting them. African Americans on a large scale are not vetting African immigrants. So it's the United States government that's vetting African immigrants to come to the United States. So when they get, by the time that they go through all of that, I just want you to ask, as a black American, ask the next African immigrant that you meet, ask them, hey, when you got here, where was the house that the government helped you, pushed you, guided you, or placed you at? And then just ask like, hey, was it around other black people? And if the answer is no, then just ask them like, okay, what were your parents or what was your reaction when you saw the black people that didn't live around you? And we all know, like in major cities of the United States, oftentimes, not, I mean, in the Midwest, let me speak for the Midwest. Oftentimes, the poorer neighborhoods are occupied by who? Okay, just like in Africa, if we're talking about, let's just stick to classism. In Africa, usually people that don't live or don't come from such good neighborhoods in Africa have a different behavior than the ones that grew up in wealth. So I think like what sometimes African Americans attribute to like, hey, they don't like me, it's more just like they think I'm poor. That's it. They just think I'm poor. That's why they think that they're better. Because a lot of times, if African immigrants are not refugees, if they're just immigrating because they don't like their government, they come from wealth. They're living good. Ask them if they had a maid or a butler in their house. Just ask them. Ask them if they had a house help. If their house help taught them the national language, because usually they grow up with. I'm yapping. Let's get back to Antoine, but just keep that in mind. Africans have a lot of classism, especially the parents.
And it ain't even because they racist. It's because culturally you different than them. I would even go so far as to say that they more or less align with white people than they do American black people. And obviously, I'm not speaking of all, I'm just telling you the truth. They align more with the patriotism and the dedication that white people have than they do with black people because it's not based off of color, it's culture. It's culture. They look at you as weak. Man, they partially right.
What in the world is that?
Take a look. This huge new
They don't want to
structure
live
spun up
amongst
in
you.
no time.
They're not trying to congregate with you. They're not trying to hang out with you. Go and talk to some of them. I've learned so much. I'm gonna release some of these new street interviews that I'm doing. When people actually tell you what they really thinking, once they get comfortable. But see, my job as a street interviewer is to get people comfortable. I'm not there to debate you. I'm not there to try to convince you. I'm not there to try to tell you to do something any different than what you was already doing. That's not what my job is. My job is to get people to authentically say what they usually wouldn't say in person. That's my job as a street interviewer. As a person that interviews people on platforms, I've learned and I've evolved. And what I found out is that the jobs that you say that you don't want because you too good for, they don't look at it the same way as you. They look at it as money. Oh man, you look at it as beneath you. You look at your boss as beneath you. They look at the boss as an opportunity to get in good with them so they can make as much money as possible. And then eventually they're going to buy the company. They look at it as, you know what? I see an opportunity to buy this whole company and I'm going to learn everything that I can while making as much money as I can. And eventually either I'm going to buy the company or I'm going to start a business and take over because I know this operation better than the people that's above me. You looking at it as, oh man, my boss, I don't like him. I'ma do this, I'ma do that. They looking at it as, oh, see, they were better than you before they beat you and then sent you over here and sold you to Europeans to ultimately build America in the first place. Because see, they conquered your tribes. And instead of having to fight you again or completely eliminate you, they turn into capitalists. They just got the bad end of the deal because they didn't realize that Europeans was negotiating much better than them.
And let me add to that. The reason on why that is often is because, I do the reporting on the Caribbean. So let me, if there's any Caribbeans that watch this that, interject, please leave a comment below and let me know where I'm wrong. But in a lot of African countries, Caribbean countries, it's really hard to get a good paying job. Really, really hard. Sure, it's hard to get a good paying job in the United States, but the fact that you can just go on Indeed.com, you can go to a website, fill out a resume. A lot of times it's like, hey, just like you press a button, you press enter, and then your resume will be filled out. And then you get a call 2 days later, 3 days later, you get an email. In Africa to get some jobs like that. Ah! You ain't, bro, what? What? People fight. People fight. Sometimes it's your last name. In African and Caribbean countries, like, hey, what's your last name? Why are you applying for this job? Don't you know people that don't have those last names work here? So African immigrants, Caribbean immigrants get here and they work their butt off at these terrible jobs, sometimes horrendous jobs, because it's like when you do the conversion rate, you might look at $10 an hour and be like, there's no way I would do, let's say, like house cleaning work. But they're doing the calculations in their head and they're saying, oh, I'll do the house cleaning, I'll do the housekeeping, I'll work as a LPN, I'll work as a CNA, and I'll scrub and I'll clean, I'll give a sponge bath to this old person, because man, this is like that $10 might be $1,000 back in their country, and it's gonna feed a lot of people's Jameson and hookah.
And they didn't know what they was really leveraging you for when you went over there for the transatlantic Atlantic trade, when they sold you over here and they sent you over here to America. So they beat you the first time. They sent you over here, but they learned from their mistakes the last time and they said, okay, listen, I see what happened. So now what we gonna do is, because they still weak, they still lazy. So now what we gonna do is we gonna walk over there now and we gonna outwork them and we gonna start businesses and we're not going to be interdependent on the system. We just going to take advantage of the system in order to win. And so while you sitting here trying to vote based off of the fact that you think that Kamala Harris is black or because of the hue of her skin, and so now you've changed civil rights to actually mean people of color instead of black people, that is now being leveraged in their favor, and they over here in droves. Every car wash that I pull up to, they got good attitudes. Every car wash that I pull up to, they got good attitudes. They compliment you. They quiet. They on time. They do their job. They shut up. They work. They do their job, and they stack their bread, and then they leverage it in order to continue to be successful.
And again, those things are because that $10 an hour, that might be $1,000 in an African or Caribbean nation. They're sending it back home, or they're like looking at the bigger picture. So they're nice and everything. And remember, not everybody's nice. That's nice. Okay, what do I mean by that, Ochanda? Just because somebody's smiling at you at work, it's because they have a bigger goal in mind. They might not be a good person, but they're cordial because they know, like, hey, there's no reason for me to have all this drama at my job. That doesn't make any sense. Why should I have attitude? I'm about my money. They're just looking at the bigger picture.
They getting your women. Oh, you ain't seen the trends? Go and get you a Nigerian man. Go and get you a Jamaica man. They taking your women. They taking your jobs. They bringing their people over here. They taking your culture. And now the culture, listen, Detroit was at one point the blackest American city in the United States of America. Detroit at one point was the blackest American city in the United States of America. We don't have, you know what's not popping? I'll give you an example. In Detroit, for example, we got all of these festivals. We got the Greek festival, we got the Arab festival, we got, all of these festivals. The only person that can't have a festival is white people. White people can't have festivals no more. All y'all can have is country music fairs. That's how this country has changed. Y'all don't want to hear the truth. Y'all don't want to hear the truth. Listen, we have a festival, the Asian festival, the Indian festival. You got Chinatown, you got Greek Town, Black Bottom. You got all of these things, right? The only people that can't have a festival is white people. Because if you call it the white festival, then they're going to call it racist and they're going to be on your ass. So now you got to rebrand yourself. Now you got to have the country music festival. Ain't that crazy? You can't even have a festival in the country that you came and conquered. You gave blankets to diseases and moved them into reservations in the least desirable.
I will also object, Antoine, and I will say that I mean, any American holiday is truly a celebration of course, the Europeans that came here. For instance, July 4th. There's many festivals that happen on July 4th. If it's not a festival, just go to any lake in the Midwest. And you guys know those lakes. Lake Okoboji. You got Wall Lake. Lake Tahoe in Nevada, I think. That's not the Midwest, but you guys get the point. And then, of course, the other holidays that are not necessarily American, but celebrated a lot in America. For instance, St. Patrick's Day. Like you don't really see African and Caribbeans celebrating that by a large number. I mean, just name it. I could say Thanksgiving, but I guess it speaks for itself. I think Saint Thanksgiving, Macy's Day Parade falls on Thanksgiving, and look at the crowds, look at the faces in the crowd. So, I'm gonna object to that, Antoine, and say like, no, I think white Americans still have their holidays. It's just more just can they have a white American holiday? They don't have to say it. It just happens throughout the year. Memorial Day weekend itself. Veterans Day. What is he talking about?
Blankets to diseases and moved them into reservations in the least desirable parts of the country. and you can't even have a festival in your own. You can't have a Caucasian festival. You can't have a white people festival. You can't even have a snow bunny festival. You got to have a country music festival now. How that feel? How that feel? St. Patrick's Day. And black people be at St. Patrick's. Ah, we dress like leprechauns. And in Detroit, for example, the African American festival ain't popping. You know what's popping? Afro Nation.
Hey, roll the footage. Woo! You see that? You see that? You see that? You see that? In Detroit. I have yet to meet the Afro Nation. Hey, let me know in the comments below if you want me to attend next year's Afro Nation in Detroit. And then maybe me and Antoine can. Antoine, if I attend, Antoine, if you're watching, if I attend, can I get an interview with you, man? Come on our show. Pull up.
You know what's at Afro Nation? All of the other black people that's from everywhere else. All of the music, dance hall, Jamaican me crazy, man. It's all of that. All of the headliners, they not from here. They from over there. All of the food vendors, Nigerian trucks, Jamaican food, all of this stuff. And I can't hate. Because all they doing is taking advantage of the opportunities that's presented to them. All they doing is taking advantage of the opportunities that's presented to them. African American Festival ain't popping. Afro Nation, that's it. It's a whole festival. It's a multi-day festival. It's a movement. Everybody be there. I went and visited myself. I went there. I said, Jesus. Because the first time they did it was last year, and this year was even bigger. I said, what is going on here? It's popping. It's popping. I'm just trying to tell you. So listen, you can sit here and pretend and close your eyes and continue to identify yourself based off of identity. They don't see you the way that you see them. They be like, yeah. Ask the Jamaican fathers, ask the Nigerian fathers if they would let their daughters marry you. Oh, you don't even know it. You ain't got to worry about the snow hairs. Snow hairs fathers, they cool now. Y'all domesticated them. Y'all beat them into the ground so bad, and y'all demonized them and called them the enemy. Y'all have called white people the enemy for so long, you've basically made them into submission. They not tripping. I mean, they may feel some type of way, but in their mind, they're like, I mean, I can't really control my daughter. She has the freedom to do what she wants to do. They not tripping. A Nigerian father is more strenuous about letting his daughter be with you as a African American man than a snow hair is.
All right, we'll go ahead and we'll let Antoine rest, man. He said a lot, especially the last part. Is it true? You know, do you have any fathers out there that, if you're an African American, Black American woman, do you, or African American man? Yeah, either or. If you're an African American, Black American man or woman, and do you feel that that if you were to ask any of your African or Caribbean friends as parents for the hand in marriage, would they allow it? If you're African, from any country, Nigeria, Kenya, Namibia, Somali, what else? South Sudan. If do you think that if an African American woman or a man uh, that you were dating, if they would want your, if they would give a blessing to the marriage of an African American individual, would they do it? One evidence that we have here at Kush Konvos TV. I don't know if you guys are already aware, but our co-host Max, he's married, and he's married to who? An African American. So Antoine, I do have one personal example. Oh, two. My dad here in the Midwest, and then Max is married to an African American woman, and she might be from Michigan. Who knows? Huh? I don't want to give too many clues out there. If you know, you know. But let us know what you think. Is Antoine Daniels correct? Is he correct? Do Haitian and Nigerian and other Caribbean and African immigrants not identify with African American culture? Do they despise African Americans just for being Black Americans? Or is it the opposite? Do African Americans or Black Americans despise African and Caribbean immigrants? Can we all just get along? That's first and foremost. Can we? Can we? Answer these questions in the comments below. Let us know what you think. Do you feel like he was wrong? Do you feel like he was on point? Do you feel like this is being blown way out of proportion? Let me know in the comments below. With that being said, man, this was a long video. I love entertaining you guys. My name is Ochanda. See you soon.